Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are. Hosted by Desiree Duffy.
Welcome, one and all, to Books That Make You. I'm your host, Desiree Duffy, and we are talking about books that make you see the perspective of immigrants chasing the elusive American dream. Yeah, the American dream for many immigrants, and their stories, they're so varied and they span so many decades and so many different people from all over the world. Historical fiction is such a great backdrop for such stories as well. And we're going to take a deep dive into the lives of 5 fictional immigrant women who are linked by blood and history. And it takes them from the killing fields in Ukraine to the fire-scorched Hollywood Hills. The novel that we're talking about is called The Blue Tatar, and it is by L.N. Gruer, an immigrant herself. She was born and raised in the former Soviet Union. Her book is her debut historical fiction novel, and she is also a poet and the first place winner of the San Francisco Writers Conference Award for her poetry collection called I Sing of Things Unspoken. Wow. She's also an award-winning essayist as well. Ellen has written nonfiction books on therapeutic nutrition, including her groundbreaking book on pediatric mineral deficiencies. Ellen, you are a woman of many talents and specialties. Hello, welcome to the show.
Hello, and thank you for having me on, Desiree, and hello to all of our listeners. I am thrilled to be on.
Excellent. Well, I'm excited to have you. So let's start with the big question, shall we? The premise of your book, Chasing the American Dream. Tell us about this theme and why you decided you chose to weave it into your storytelling.
Well, I'm an immigrant myself, and I deal in my community with a lot of immigrants. I live in an area that's extremely diverse. My best friend is Korean, and my daughter-in-law is Indian. My doctor is Mexican, and the ladies that take care of my personal things are Bulgarian and Vietnamese. So I'm very much a part of the modern immigrant women experience. So like many writers, I write about what I know. Mm-hmm. And I am pretty much a frustrated history teacher because I have a master's degree in Eastern European Studies from UCLA, and also a little bit of a frustrated bartender. I love to talk to people. Actually, people like to talk to me. So in my ideal career, I would be teaching history and then pouring drinks. So,
hey, that's a great idea for a bar. Let's do that.
That would be a fun career. Anyway, I didn't set out. I will be completely upfront. I've spoken to many interviewers, people saying, why did you write a novel? I never set out to write a novel. I'm a poet. I'm primarily a poet. This is how I express myself. But I was double dog dared, to quote my favorite Christmas movie. Mm-hmm. And also, I was told by quite a few people that it cannot be done. And being perversely freedom-loving and a little bit of an oppositional defiant personality, that's why I left Soviet Union when it wasn't former. It was a real Soviet Union, real totalitarian communist dictatorship. I decided if people tell me I can't, I will go ahead and do it. So here I am.
I love that. So, okay, we were talking about this a little bit before because your book is classified as historical fiction, and you obviously know your history, but it could be categorized as women's fiction or literary fiction or immigrant fiction. Can you just explain a little bit how you have these multiple genres within this book?
Well, I think it's not complicated. How I see life is we all live our life. Everyone has a story, right? We wake up in the morning and we have our story, but then we interact with other people, and so we enter their stories. But we also are a part of the culture. I had a wonderful review that kind of brought me to tears because I always think people are not going to understand what I'm trying to say. But actually, this gentleman understood that we immigrants, we leave our old country, but we don't leave it behind. So we are a part of the past, meaning history, but we also part of now and hopefully part of the future. And I am a huge fan of women fiction. I just finished a wonderful book by The Immortalist by Chloe Benjamin. I love Jambalahiri. I love Jambalahiri stories of Indian immigrants. And because I have such a soft spot, being part of my family is now Indian, Gujaratis, right? So these are the things that really, make my juices flow. This is what I'm interested in. History. I'm interested in women issues. I'm a mother. I'm a grandmother. I'm a holistic doctor. I have a practice that is a family practice. I have newborns all the way to 84-year-old women who I love stories. I love to hear people talk. And I was blessed to be brought up by grandparents because my parents were very young. In fact, one of my heroines in the book, Dr. Bella, the dentist, she talks a little bit about what's it like to be raised by these really cute, young, eccentric parents, but they really don't act like parents because they're so young. My mother is only 20 years older than me. My father was just a few years older than her. So I have a history, and then most of us Russian speakers, I will say former Soviet Union world, our grandparents are the most important things in our life, much more than our parents until we get older. So in Blue Tatar, there are several very strong themes about connection to the grandparents, the extended family, which is not always the same here in United States, in the West, where the grandparents really do not live with their children. Certainly my Latino friends still have their grandparents living with them, but most of my American friends, certainly it's my American-born third-generation American husband would never even think about having my mother live with us and raise the children. So there's quite a bit of difference about how we see things like family, how we raise our children, what we teach our children.
And that's fascinating. So let's set the stage because you have essentially the stories of 5 women in this book. Can you explain how that works?
So there are 5 women and their families, and they are all modern immigrant women living in Southern California in Russian-speaking community, meaning there are some Russians and there's some Ukrainians and there are some Christians, Jews, atheists, very much just like our country. And so we have 5 characters, each one, you can say composite, you can say represents a different point of view. There is Sasha, the florist. She's gentle. She's a people pleaser. She's very happily married to a wonderful man, but she's taking care of her old, sick, alcoholic, homophobic, Stalinist father and trying to protect her American-born son who is gay. So that's the conflict. And who is she going to choose? The loyalty to her adopted father. So there's a strong sub-theme of adoption and how different it is in our parts of the world. And also trying to see how she can make her son understand that he is her life. There is also Oksana, and Oksana is a shopaholic. She's married to a very controlling man, and she comes from a St. Petersburg family, a very, very, should I say, intelligentsia, meaning they're very educated, and she does not have a degree. People dismiss her, and yet she's extremely talented, and her dream is to be a shoe designer. And she's also in love with a man who, shall we say, is a little bit untraditional, trying to escape. That's her American dream, to design beautiful footwear and live her life. Of course, there's Flora, who is, some people would say she's the most lucky one because she married a wealthy, successful American businessman, but she's a Russian patriot. Some call it a zealot. She feels very much not at home here. She suffers. She hides herself, and she looks for feeling better in plastic surgery and infidelity. There is also Dr. Bella, who is, I would say, more conventional character as far as American Dream. She's a dentist. She's successful. She's very deeply in love with her brilliant husband, and he's very competitive with her. She still wants to give up everything to be a horsewoman. She has a deep passion for horses and riding. So some people say, oh, it's got to be you. No, it's not me, but we do have few things in common. She's also from Odessa, my hometown in Ukraine, and she also likes to ride. So a couple things we have in common. and then I'm not married to a Russian guy. And of course, there is Fat Maya, a funny, wisecracking manicurist with big appetite for food and sex and America, and she is a mobster. She is an underworld figure. This is sort of a Emmy Tan's book,
Joy Luck Club.
Joy Luck Club.
Yeah.
Meet the Godfather, but the Godfather is the godmother.
I love it.
So no one should underestimate Maya. And there's, of course, their families. This is very much a multi-generational story. And then these women have to take care of their older, aging, and ill parents, just like everybody else, every other woman. They have to deal with their not-so-perfect husband. And yet these are modern women. They have their dreams also. They have their careers. They have their businesses. They have to understand their children. And some of these wonderful dreams, chasing the American dream, turn out to be a nightmare.
And you mentioned the Joy Luck Club. I'm curious. Is your book compared to that a lot?
So far it's been. Mm-hmm. Not to sound, again, from my culture, we are not really good with PR. It's not, we are always told when we grow up, if you stick out like a nail, you'll be hit on the head. So
okay.
It's a little different. It's very different culture. So, but not to sound immodest, we've had some very positive responses. And so some people have compared it to a little bit of a Joy Luck Club because it's about women, it's about immigrant women. But it's definitely different. It's kind of witty. It has some extremely intense moments. It certainly starts with a very important historical event, 100% historically accurate, 1937 massacre of the civilian population in a small Ukrainian town called Vinnytsia. Mm-hmm. And I explained that, and then it ends with a fire above Hollywood, which often happens. So there's a lot in between. There's lots of food. I love to cook. There are some wonderful, fun recipes. In fact, I had a reviewer on Amazon say that now she wants to go to a Russian deli or Russian restaurant and eat some Russian food. So there is food, there's some shoes, there's lots of humor, but there's also some very heavy underlying tone about loyalty and betrayal, family loyalty, family curses, massacres. We definitely have a variety of different views inside the community about the role of Hollywood. Sasha is a huge fan of classic American film, and she doesn't understand why people pick on Hollywood. She says Hollywood has always been on the forefront of fighting for social justice. And then, of course, you have people who just want Hollywood to burn. So a variety of view. People tend to paint immigrant community as monolithic, and that's not true at all. Not true. We have different backgrounds. People from Ukraine are very different than people from modern Russia. People who know our community, people from Moscow are very different. So I talk about cultural differences within our community, linguistic differences. Think about what's going on with Ukraine. Every day, Ukraine is in the news. Mm-hmm. So you have people who are in Ukraine, who are Ukrainian speaking Ukrainian speaking Russian. They're all arguing. So in one of the chapters, I give quite a bit of background of why this is happening and why there is a conflict. So that's where history comes in.
Okay, exactly. That's what I was going to say. That's where the historical significance comes in. And can you talk about the title a little bit? The Blue Tatar.
So the Blue Tatar is really my father's, it's a nickname of my dad's favorite soccer player. I'm a huge sports fan. Baseball, soccer, American football, rugby makes no difference to me. I will watch sports. I will talk about sports endlessly, but not in this program. Anyway, so I grew up absolutely loving soccer. That's how my dad and I connected. But the Tatars are the historic Turkish people that were first mentioned around the Lake Baikal in Siberia around 5th century. And in the 13th century, they became allies of the dreaded Mongols, the Golden Horde that invaded Russia and stayed there somewhere around 500 years. Some historians say about 300. And so in one of the chapters, I do bring out, it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, a little sarcastic, but I do talk about the traditional Tatar people. And these people, I mean, it's been ethnic cleansing. They've been pushed around from one area to another, and they were just betrayed again in the annexation of Ukraine. So that's where it is. So there is a little bit of tongue-in-cheek thing that one day the Blue Tatar would betray me just like Comrade Stalin betrayed the Tatars. But it's not about the specific history, but there is a background. Mm-hmm. But the Blue Tatar is actually was a guy, and he was a very famous goalie to our wonderful soccer team, and that was his nickname. There was a guy named Chicken, and my dad's favorite player was the Blue Tatar.
Got it.
So there is a story. There is a chapter. There's a whole chapter called the Blue Tatar, and hopefully you'll read it, and your listeners will read it, and you will have a little chuckle with me. But actually, that chapter has tremendous amount of history and historical background, a lot of contextual history there. And, you know, I am a trained historian. Therefore, this is something that is very natural and very easy for me.
And as a historian, I'm curious, what is your methodology? Do you write bios, especially with so many characters and so much history and everything interwoven together like that? Do you write down an outline? Do you create bios? Do you create a vision board? What's your methodology?
I do not. I will be completely honest. I write 1,000 words a day. In fact, I did my 1,000 words this morning. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about because the book is finished. So I sit down and I spend 10 to 20 minutes listening. I actually have a little click in my Pro Writer, and I listen to what I wrote before. And when I'm done with that particular 1,000 words, I start creating. So in many ways, all of this is in my head.
Fascinating. Well, every writer has their own method, and I'm always...
Everyone different.
Yeah. Now...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, please, go ahead.
Well, I think it's a little different for me because being a poet, I am not comfortable writing 500-600 pages. So my natural propensity is to squeeze out as much meaning as I can in each individual sentence. So I am not comfortable with a lot of, when you're doing historical research, I can do, let's say, 300 pages just on one edict, how Stalin got rid of the Crimean Tatars. But it's kind of boring. I have a little bit of writer ADD, and if I am bored writing it, I will be bored reading it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit different. Again, when you're a trained historian, I have my methods. It's much easier for me to do research than people who are not trained historians because I've done many papers. I've done a thesis. So it's almost, even though I don't do it professionally because my interest switched into holistic medicine, it's still there. It's like riding a bicycle. It's still there. Obviously, I have my books. I mean, if you were sitting in my office right now, you will see hundreds and hundreds of books on Russian and Soviet history and world history. So I can just pick it up and say, okay, this is when it happened. So sure. I have a great advantage. I do a lot of my research from my own library.
And you took me exactly where I wanted to go next. I want to talk about your poetry. I also want to talk about you as a holistic life coach and some of the things that you do with nutrition. But we'll put that on the back burner because you are an award-winning poet as well, correct? And you wrote the collection I Sing of Things Unspoken. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, that was how my life goes. Always, everything is always on a lark. So a friend of mine in a Bay Area, who is also a writer, told me about her experience on going to a various writers' conferences. Now, I work about 7 days a week with my practice. So it happened to be around Valentine's Day, and I decided to go to San Francisco and also spend a little time with my nephew, who at the time was going to University of San Francisco. So when I got on the website and I registered for various, seminars, and this is I've never done anything like this. They said that there was a contest and there was money involved. And I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a businesswoman, and there's money involved. Somebody will pay me for poetry. All my life, I was told by everyone, what are you going to do with your poetry? Wipe your butt with it? Or are you going to open up a history, poetry shop? So basically, all my life I've been told, you're no Boris Pasternak. I'm like, okay, not a problem. So they wanted a collection. And I sent them, I think, half a dozen of my poems under a name of the main poem was I Sing of Things Unspoken. And the whole thing about this whole collection was about language, that I love language. I truly do. I speak many languages. I love language. So one of the lines was about, how did I write it? Interesting. It's the language of any object is the subject of my life. And so for whatever reason, and I'm blessed and I'm grateful and I was shocked, here I am sitting, third day into it, I'm sitting in this huge, a big fancy hotel, one of those ballrooms with over 500 people, and they call my name for the grand prize. So I was like, are you joking? Are you kidding? This is not even my language, right? So I won the prize and I won the money. It was the most ridiculous experience of my life.
Well, so congratulations.
Thank you. So when I got home, I actually showed the check to my family and said, guess what? I actually made money with my poetry. So,
you showed them. I love it.
I didn't expect it. And so I write quite a bit. If in the end of the program, I'm sure we're going to talk about my website. I created actually a page. It's called my poetry blog, and my Instagram is Poetess Doctor, because I guess there was a guy called Poet Doctor. So there's a lot of my poetry. Some of it is prose poetry. Some of it is very short. Some of it is long. Some of it is very personal. Some of it is not. That's how I express myself. I express myself in the language of any subject is the object of my life. So that's my epitaph, I guess.
And you are a holistic life coach. What does that mean?
I'm actually a coach for creatives. I'm actually a holistic alternative medical professional. I have a PhD in holistic nutrition, specializes in pediatrics, and also I'm a registered naturopath.
And that's fascinating. Can you tell us a little bit about your philosophies on nutrition?
My philosophy is extremely simple. It goes back thousands of years. Use food as medicine and medicine as food. So I'm not a huge fan of supplementation and some crazy things. The body needs fresh air, good water, lots of rest, happiness, creativity, and the food, we are what we eat, molecularly speaking, and the food that feeds your body and your soul.
And it seems so simple too. Fresh,
it is simple.
Whole foods.
It is simple.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like we make it hard on ourselves because we want to eat the pizza. We want to eat the candy with the high fructose corn syrup and all that stuff.
Well, by the way, you can eat the pizza. There is nothing wrong with pizza. If you're using non-GMO products with a wonderful, I eat pizza when I'm in Europe. I do not eat any gluten products in this country, and don't get me going. It's a conversation for another time. But when I'm in Italy, I eat pizza because the wheat is different. It's very low glutinous, and a little skinny margarita pizza with extra virgin olive oil and wonderful herbs and some wonderful bufala mozzarella. What's wrong with that? Nothing. Couple pieces of that with a good Chianti. What is wrong with that? It's pleasure in life.
You are so right. In Europe, the bread, the wheat, it is just different. And I can't. I can no longer eat pizza here in the U.S. I love it, but I personally can't. But you're right. I can eat it elsewhere.
None of us can. And the same with candy. There is nothing wrong with the most delicious dark chocolate with some good almonds or pecans. Nothing wrong with that. Food should be pleasure. And this is the point of one of my characters. It's very interesting, by the way, that you mentioned that. The mob lady, the mobster, the mafia lady, Fat Maya, she has great appetite for food. She's a fabulous cook, right? And of course, everybody trying to make her lose weight. And it's a very, very funny story. In fact, as she descends into madness and darkness, it happens when the food is taken away from her, the pleasure of food, because she goes ahead with a bypass surgery on her stomach. So that's going to be an interesting, food things. And I was being interviewed by a fellow, and he actually said, well, this woman has an eating disorder. And I start laughing. That's not the point at all. We should be getting pleasure from food. We just shouldn't eat so much. And we should eat pure, good food. I mean, this thing with the COVID-19, what it has taught a lot of people, actually, we've been doing very well with our crowd, holistic crowd. I don't even know anybody who has a cold, to be fair, because I've been training and talking. I've spoken on the radio and I blog about getting pleasure from food, not eating on the run, not shoving all this disgusting food and still being dissatisfied because our brain doesn't have a chance to register the pleasure of delicious. I would rather have one tomato from Odessa than a whole kilo, 2.2 pounds from Ralph's or Kroger's or whatever, because nothing tastes good. It's like paper.
Oh, yes, you're right, especially tomatoes.
It's plastic. It's plastic food. So for me, the decision was very simple, is I grow my own vegetables. I don't live in the 2 acres. I live in Southern California on a postage-size lot in the suburbia. And yet I terraced my little side. And, I'll send you a picture. And I grow so many beautiful things in my garden, including 2 weeks ago, I did a little mini lavender farm because I love making lavender ice cream.
I would love to see those photos. Yes.
I'll send it to you. You'll be sorry. Well, actually, everyone can go on my Facebook and my Instagram, and you'll see everything. Everything is right on social media. My apple trees. I have pomegranates. I have lots of wonderful things. It's small. It's very small, but it has that scent. It has that pleasure, and I love digging in the dirt. I'm a frustrated farmer because I grew up in the city, and we didn't get to go to dacha, the farmland, only in the summer, and I write about that. So for those of your listeners who are foodies like I am, you will really enjoy it. In fact, there is even experience of this couple. They only connect when they go dining. Very fancy 3 Michelin stars. And people say, oh, not everybody can do it. And my character, Dr. Bella, explains she was fed such slop and such horrible tasting food because we grew up in difficult time after the war with a lot of food deficit. And nobody really could understand it until this COVID experience, because now people say, what do you mean there's no toilet paper? My son, the doctor, called me and said, Mom, there's no toilet paper. I said, there is a leaf on the tree. It's not a big deal.
You are so right.
This is a very interesting time to have this book to come out, because the questions I'm being asked at my interviews, I think are very different from what it would have been last year.
I can see that. And now you've given us your social media and your website. Can you tell us one more time and tell people where they can find your books too? Give us all your details.
So the book is everywhere. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes & Noble. It's on Indie. It's on even Walmart.com. Apparently it has a sale, which is wonderful. You can go on my website, LN Gruer, Gruer, like the cheese, Gruer, that's my husband's family, Gruer.com, and you have all of the links. Also, my Instagram handle is Poetess Doctor. My page on Facebook is LN Gruer. Please follow me. Please contact me. I love to hear what you guys think. I really do. I'm fascinated about what Americans think about our little tribe here.
Oh, it's a fascinating book. And I just got to confess too, I have my tomato plants out there. I have a pomegranate tree. I have an apple tree, and I'm here in Southern California too. So it sounds like we might be living mirror lives here.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Do you have, which apple tree do you have? Do you have Beverly Hills or Anna?
It's a green apple. I'm not exactly sure.
That's Anna. Yes. That's wonderful.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
LN, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Desiree.
And once again, everyone, my name is Desiree Duffy, and this is the Books That Make You show. Thank you for joining us today. You can find out more on our website. It's booksthatmakeyou.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Sign up for our newsletter. We're always doing bookish fun things. Until next time, my bibliophiles, please enjoy all of the books that make you exactly who you are.
The executive producer for Books That Make You is Desiree Duffy. Produced and sound mastered by Phil Giangrande. Engineering by Dave Nabox. Social media and promotion by Bree Sweeter. For more, visit booksthatmakeyou.com.